It was very interesting to hear all your opinions with regards to what engine you would fit to Heidi. There's a slight dent there, and this door basically swung into the rear quarter panel, and this is looking a bit different using a hammer and chisel. Yeah, you see what I mean, angle grinder out. So I decided to do it the unsafe way, just all pinged off, and you know, the spring went, you know, across the other side. Are actually already fitted to the car, only has 3 out of 4 wheels. And I realised that the anti-roll bar was upside down, and if she's going to be a roller, she may as well now also be a steerer. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes, and today I've jumped in Maud, my Maud Mark II Escort, to head over to my other garage to make some more progress on my other Maud Mark II that I like to call Heidi. It was very interesting to hear all your opinions with regards to what engine you would fit to Heidi, although I have already decided that she's getting a 1300 crossflow. A lot of you guys were saying that I wouldn't be able to cope with having such a slow engine in Heidi, but I'm really trying to build Heidi into, you know, a comfortable ultimate daily driver, you could say, and I really think that a 1300 crossflow is going to fit the bill perfectly. Yes, I could fit a 1600 crossflow. I have actually had a stock 1600 in this car at one stage. I also had a really leery 1700 crossflow in this thing, and yeah, a 1600 crossflow would be even more perfect. You know, they're not that exciting, but they've got a bit more power than a 1300. But the prices of a complete 1600 crossflow nowadays, you know, if I was going to spend that much money, then I may as well just fit something a bit quicker to Heidi. Whereas a 1300 crossflow, let's just say I'm getting one for free. So, as I say, she will be getting a 1300 crossflow. You know, plans change, things change. Maybe one day she'll get something a bit quicker. But first of all, she is getting a 1300 crossflow. Now, I've actually been over to Heidi's garage twice since the last video, and I've been really struggling with something on her. I have thankfully sussed what I was struggling with, and yeah, I'm ready to make some more progress on her today. All right, it is a very windy day around here, so I hope you can hear me properly. But as you can see, I've already got Heidi out of the garage, and I've got her off of her trolley. And I'm sure most of you can guess exactly what's going to be happening today. Now, before we get into that, one of you guys was saying that this carpet that I recently threw into Heidi's cockpit might actually be from an automatic Escort. Now, the tunnel area definitely seems a bit loose, so that could, you know, line up with what that person was saying. But I'm not sure if the shifter on an automatic is further back than a 4-speed. It's my understanding that RS2000s gear sticks are further back, because when you fit a Type 9 gearbox to an RS, although you do have to sort out the mounts underneath the car, you don't have to move the gear shifter back like you do when you fit a Type 9 to a 4-speed car. So if anyone else out there can confirm or deny whether an automatic shifter is further back than a 4-speed, that would be great. But either way, I am going to make this carpet work, at least for now. I don't know what I can do to maybe make the tunnel look a bit tighter, but I think once all the, you know, switch panels in and whatnot, it'll look fine. Now, when I was round here yesterday, I was fiddling around with a couple of bits, one being that I cut a bit off of the rubber filler neck here, which has enabled the tank to go in a bit easier. I've also, whilst the tank was out, turned the clips around on the bottom of the tank, which has meant that I was able to get one of 2 of the bottom bolts in. The other one I couldn't get in because there's no hole in the panel for the bolts poke through, because that panel below there has been changed at some point. So yeah, this tank now has 3 out of the 4 bolts instead of just the top 2. And yeah, hopefully now the rubber neck isn't going to be sort of squished and under pressure, which can actually cause them to crack, which can then mean that when you fill the car up with fuel, you end up getting a load of fuel in the tank well, which we don't want. Now, whilst we're around the back end of Heidi, something happened yesterday which yeah, it wasn't great. If we look in here, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but there's a slight dent there from the outside, because when I was around here last, it was even windier than it is today, and this door basically swung into the rear quarter panel. Today, I've made sure that Heidi's forward enough so that if the door was to swing, it wouldn't hit it, and I've put this old battery there to prop it open. Normally, I just prop it with these bits of wood trapped underneath it. But yeah, yesterday that wasn't enough to stop the wind blowing the door into the car. The annoying thing is, exactly the same thing happened to Esther, my Mark 1 Escort, years ago. Thankfully, that was when she was, you know, a bare shell and the inside of the boot wasn't painted already. But with the paintwork done in Heidi, I've now got a choice to make. I can either try and bang this dent out, which you should, you know, you should try and bang the dents out as best you can before you start adding filler. If I bang the dent out, then I might end up cracking the paint from inside. But if I don't bang it out, I'll end up having to put more filler than I otherwise would in this area here. So, yeah, not sure what to do about that. I'll make that decision when it comes to bare metaling this passenger side rear quarter panel. But, yeah, disappointing, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. It's only a dent. Now, over on Maud's bonnet, I've got a load of parts that I want to fit to Heidi today. Because, yeah, I'm looking to get her back on all four wheels. But before we come to that, let me explain something that I was really struggling with around here the other day. Now, over here, I've got Heidi's driver's side front leg. And this is looking a bit different than it was when I removed it from the car a while ago. And this caused me so much grief the other day. Those of you that follow me on Facebook and Instagram may have seen my stories from this grief. But essentially, this thing used to have a sort of dust guard on the back, and I've never bothered running them on any of my cars. They're always, you know, rusty and stuff. So I decided to remove the dust shields from both of Heidi's front legs. That involves taking the caliper off, you know, undoing the nut and stuff beneath this dust cover to pull the disc and hub off, and then you can get to the bolts that hold the dust cover to the front leg. Those bolts were really rusty. They're Torx bolts, or Allen key bolts, I can't remember. And yeah, they were so rusty that, you know, I'm trying to use a Torx or an Allen key socket and it was just rounding off. So I actually ended up using a hammer and chisel to sort of tap the bolts loose. And yeah, I got the dust shields off relatively easy. Once I'd got the dust shields off, I wanted to replace Heidi's original springs for these lowering springs that I had in my garage, and those lowering springs were fitted to Maud when she used to have 1300 front legs. She's now, of course, got the 2.8 Capri Bilsteins that used to be fitted to Esther, my Mark 1. Now, the reason I'm not using the front legs that were fitted to Maud is because the Spax adjustable inserts in them, I'm pretty sure they're worn, because I remember when they were on the car there was like a bit of play between the shock absorber, you know, the shaft in there, and the strut body. So I decided not to fit Maud's old front legs, and I decided to fit these front legs with these lowering springs. Anyway, the problem was that getting the top mounts off that were fitted to these legs on this one in particular was an absolute nightmare. I used spring compressors to compress the original spring, took the top nut off, which was a bit of a challenge in itself. I've actually mullered this nut a little bit, and then, you know, with the nut off and the spring compressed, the top mount just wouldn't come off. And when I say it wouldn't come off, I mean it wouldn't come off. Like, I was hitting it with a massive hammer, I was using a hammer and chisel trying to whack it off, and it just wasn't budging. I actually ended up mullering this piece that was fitted. Let me dig the bits out. All right, so I've got this piece here, which is one of these. I can't find the actual top mount itself. I've probably already thrown it away. But yeah, you see what I mean. Literally, even with the top nut off, this is how much damage I did to this, and I still couldn't bang the bits off. These bits literally just slide off when this nut isn't fitted. But yeah, this and the top mount were just seized on with rust. This piece here actually has this piece like a strengthening piece. You can see that disc there. And yeah, I was getting a chisel in between the two pieces and just trying all sorts. And then towards the end of that first day that I was struggling with this, I got the angle grinder out, and yeah, it was just a mess. Now, earlier on that day, before I got the grinder out and stuff, I did get the sort of outside of the top mount off by basically setting it on fire. If I just show you on this top mount, this is the one that came off the other side, which came off a bit easier. But basically, yeah, I was burning this rubber, and then I was able to pull all of the mount off except for this metal sleeve in the middle, which was seized onto the shaft in there. And yeah, I ended up coming round here a second day, and then here is the sleeve. That's that bit out of there. You know, as I say, I had tried with an angle grinder and whatnot, and then I basically used heat, you know, more heat just on this. and then I was able to sort of bang against here with a hammer and chisel, and then thankfully it came off. And then I was able to slide this bit off, which was already mullered, and then I was able to fit the lowering spring and this piece from the other front leg. So yeah, absolute nightmare just changing one lowering spring. Now the other side thankfully was a lot easier. I didn't bother using spring compressors. By then I was just fed up. So I decided to do it the unsafe way, and basically I just took the top nut off and it all still held together, and I was thinking, here we go again. But thankfully I was able to just whack the top mount, and then it just all pinged off, and you know, the spring went, you know, across the other side of the garages. Didn't hit anyone, didn't hit anything, thankfully. And yeah, then I was able to put the lowering spring on the other front leg. But yeah, what a nightmare this driver's side front leg caused me. Rusty parts, man, rusty parts. But yeah, thankfully now the front legs are ready to fit. You know, at some point I'm going to need to rebuild these calipers. The brake discs are going to get changed. I may end up changing the front wheel bearings. I don't know yet. You've got the brake pipe here. The car's going to be getting all new brake pipes. But for now, the front legs are ready to get Heidi back on all four wheels, which I'm really happy about. So on Maud's bonnet over here, we've got the cross member and the anti-roll bar that were recently sandblasted and powder coated for me by Microblast Services. The brackets that were also done at the same time are actually already fitted to the car with the re-zinc plated bolts. I've also got the re-zinc plated anti-roll bar clamps under there. Because yeah, the other day when I come around here hoping to get Heidi on all fours, then I thought I should at least fit the anti-roll bar brackets off camera. But yeah, I've dug out all the hardware that I'm going to need today. You know, all these re-zinc plated bolts for the steering rack, for instance, the nut and bolt to hold these track control arms onto the cross member. These are brand new track control arms that I got from my friends at BURTON Power. I've dug out one of my spare steering racks. I'm not sure if this is a quick rack or not. I'm not sure if it's got any play in it or not, but for now I'll put the car together with it and we'll just see how it feels when it drives. I did replace one boot. I actually got a pair of boots when I bought Heidi. They came with the car, and also got a pair of these with the car, so I fitted them as well. These are obviously the non-RS ones. This steering rack would have had RS ones fitted before, which were looking pretty knackered anyway. I'm going to reuse this original steering knuckle. I think you can change the rubbers on these. Don't really want to fit a rally one of these to Heidi. I want to keep it nice and compliant. So yeah, I'll probably just have to buy a new bush for this potentially. I mean, it's not in the worst shape, but definitely a few little cracks in it. We'll just see again how it feels when the car's on the road. And over here I've got some poly bushes for the front of the anti-roll bar. Yeah, this is where the anti-roll bar attaches to those clamps that I just showed you that are already fitted to the car. I've got a wide range of poly bushes for classic Fords available on my website at marcushayesuk.com. I'll leave a link to my website in the description, and I can get way more bushes than the ones that are listed on my website. So if you've got a different classic Ford or a different car and you need some poly bushes, definitely get in touch. Drop me an email. My email address is always in the description of the videos as well. So yeah, essentially I need to chuck all these bits and the front legs onto this thing, and then I can bolt the front wheels back on, and yeah, I don't need to keep dragging the car in and out of the garage on the trolley, which actually broke last time I pushed it back into the garage. It now only has 3 out of 4 wheels. Anyway, let's cue some music and get this done. The first job was to remove my butchered old rusty crossmember and replace it with the freshly powder coated one. Next, I fitted the track control arms to the crossmember, leaving the nuts loose at this stage, and then it was time to make way for the steering rack, which I was going to mount with rubber bushes. I greased up the spline on the rack and the steering column, and then fitted the steering knuckle to the rack. And once the bushes were slipped onto the steering rack, it was time to fit it to the car. I lifted the rack into position and made sure that the flat on the steering column was lined up with the correct part of the steering knuckle. Then I slipped the rack clamps on with help from my hammer and bolted them into place, and then I bolted the knuckle to the column. I slid this washer back up the column where it belongs and put a split pin in the hole, and then cracked on with fitting Heidi's driver's side front leg. I attached it to the top mount, attached the track control arm to the bottom and the track rod end to the steering arm, and then repeated the process on the passenger side, leaving all the hardware loose at this stage. Next to go on was the anti-roll bar and the Powerflex Black Series bushes, which aren't super stiff and they look like original rubber bushes. Once I'd lubed up the bushes with the supplied lube and slipped them onto the anti-roll bar, it was time to fit the anti-roll bar to the car. I was able to do it without taking up the tension with a ratchet strap. But then I realised that the anti-roll bar was upside down, so I had to remove it and refit it again. This time I needed to put a jack underneath the driver's side track control arm so that I could get the passenger side of the anti-roll bar in. I bolted the anti-roll bar clamps on, and then I drilled out the snapped off split pins before screwing on the castellated nuts. I still need to find the washers that go on for them. One of Heidi's wheels annoyingly has a puncture, so I dug out the tyre weld to see if I could fix it, which seemed to work. So then it was finally time to get the front wheels fitted to Heidi and get her back on the ground. So there it is, Heidi's now a roller. It's awesome to see yet more new and restored parts fitted to her. And if she's going to be a roller, she may as well now also be a steerer. Alright, well this has been another day where progress has been slow, where I'm just trying to be careful and take my time, but it's so good to see this thing back on all four wheels again. I did just go round off camera and tighten up all the nuts and bolts that I've put on today. Not doing anything up to spec at this stage, just making sure that everything's semi-tight. And I also just adjusted the alignment. It was towing out really bad, so yeah, it's somewhat aligned now. A couple of things to mention. I didn't fit these things to the top mounts. I thought I had a couple of sets of these, but I don't. These are the only ones I've got because I wasn't running stock top mounts on moored. So yeah, I didn't have those pieces. So I haven't bothered fitting these because I want to get these re-zinc plated. I also might prep and paint this top mount. This is the one that didn't get destroyed, that was fitted to Heidi's legs, because as I mentioned in the last video, this one here has got a nut on the back of one of the bolts. Yeah, you can just about see it there. So yeah, I might prep and paint that top mount. But yeah, as I say, really good to have this thing on all fours again. A couple of things to mention from the last video actually. The bottom of this servo is supposed to be attached to the inner wing. I've just got a bolt in there, and basically there's supposed to be two bolts that have these little clips on them that basically clip into the square holes on this bracket. David Coogan, who sold me that servo and tower, has only managed to find one of those special bolts, and part of the little clip is broken. I think he said he has dug out the second one since then, but I haven't seen him. So yeah, at some point I need to mount this properly to the inner wing. I might just use normal nuts and bolts, to be honest. I'm not bothered if I don't have the correct bolts. Another thing, on the steering column, there is supposed to be a bolt that mounts the bottom of the column to the bulkhead. It's on that little bracket there, and I haven't put that in yet. At such an early stage in the project, things like that don't matter as long as I remember that they still need to be done. Annoyingly, it just started spitting with rain. Really hope it's not going to absolutely pour down. I think it'd be nice to relatively soon get the bonnet refitted, but I need to paint the inside of it first. Also to get the front wings refitted, but I want to put some sort of coating on the inside of them. And also it'd be nice soon to get the doors all fitted. All in good time. I think the first thing out of those things that I just listed that will be fitted is the front wings, and yeah, I want to try and get them ready today. Alright, so what I've got here is one of Heidi's front wings. The other one is just inside my dad's garage there. And to coat the inside of these, I'm going to be using another product from my friends at Kent Europe, and this is their rubber guard, which is a textured underbody stone chip coating. So this should be ideal. You can actually paint over the top of this if you wanted it to be body colour, but I'm not going to bother. Seeing as Heidi's inner wings aren't going to be beige, then I don't see the point of the inside of the wings being beige either. But I do want to give them a bit more protection than just the primer that comes on the wings. So yeah, I'm going to try this rubber guard stuff. Before I apply it, I'm going to give the whole of the inside of the wing a good key with this foam sanding pad, also from Kent Europe, and I'm going to mask out certain bits. I definitely don't want to get any of that stuff on here, and I'll probably mask out where the bolts go, because these wings are bolt on. So mask out this bit, mask out this bit, and anywhere where the wing meets the car, so this face and this face here. And I'll probably also mask just round here, just have like an edge, so that I keep the product on the inside of the wing where I want it. And no, I'm not going to bother removing that label either. I did just try and remove bits of it and it's just breaking up. So yeah, I'm going to paint over the label as well. Now it is getting on a bit, so hopefully I can coat both of these wings today before I leave here. And then yeah, there's not much stopping me fitting the wings to Heidi next time I come round. Once I'd keyed up the whole of the inside of Heidi's wing, I fired up Maud's engine to warm up the rubber guard. Then after a little bit of degreaser and quite a lot of masking tape, it was time to shake up the rubber guard and start applying it. It was quite difficult keeping it even just because it was so windy, but I think I did okay, and I ended up using half the can for one wing, which I think is a nice but not excessive coat. Alright, there we go. I've given the wing about 2 passes with the rubber guard. You can see it's a sort of textured finish. And yeah, I think that'll do. Now I'm going to see if I can bang out the other one before it gets dark. Alright, so thankfully before I left the garage I was able to coat the inside of the other one of Heidi's front wings, and the rubber guard seems like a really decent product. We'll see what it looks like dry next time I go to the garage, but yeah, it seems to go on really easily. I could have probably done a better job of making it even if I wasn't doing it in the wind, but there you go. And yeah, it will offer a nice heavy duty coating to the inside of Heidi's front wings. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to be cracking on with next on Heidi. I probably should soon start fitting the wiring loom and thinking about making up the brake pipes and that sort of thing. But I'm kind of enjoying just randomly cracking on with whatever I decide when I get to the garage, because there is just so much left to do. You know, I'm happy that I'm chipping away and making progress despite the bad weather, but yeah, there's a long way to go. Now the weather has actually got a little bit warmer over the last few days. That has meant that it's been raining. It's actually raining right now, but yeah, I think pretty soon I'd like to crack on with maybe painting the inside of her bonnet, and yeah, I can remove her boot and paint the inside of that, because I think the boot area and the engine bay will look really cool with the boot and bonnet fitted with the inside of them painted beige. But maybe before I fit those panels I should try and paint strip the outsides of them, just because it'll be easy doing that with the panels on a trestle. I don't know. As I say, I'll decide what I'm going to be doing next on the day that I'm going round to the garage next. And I hope you guys are going to join me for future videos to see Heidi come together. Now before I go, let me remind you that I'm running a bit of a sale on merchandise on my website at marcushayesuk.com, so head over there before it all runs out. The new clothing that I released just before Christmas, the new hoodies, t-shirts and sweatshirts featuring professionally drawn designs of Esther and Maud, are actually going to be going back on my website on the 1st of February. I've got very limited numbers and it's only in the popular sizes, but yeah, I'm going to be releasing those bits on the 1st of February, so here's your pre-warning. I know loads of people have been asking me about the new merch and why it's not on my website at the moment. The brand new Maud and Esther mugs and brand new Maud and Esther banners are available now on my website though, and yeah, as I say, there is loads of bits on there that are reduced as part of our January sale at the moment. So that's all I've got for this video. Massive thanks as always to everyone who's tuned in. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website, not only for merchandise, but also for car parts. Massive thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.